So we are on the subject of 7/11, the 9/11, or September 11th. Thus, once again, we have the story of the terrorists that are related to 7/11, which actually brings me to The Family Guy. Specifically, season 11, or the L-even, and episode 15. The episode that's called The Turban Cowboy, where the star Peter becomes a Muslim. And of course, they relate being a Muslim to being a terrorist. And of course, Peter is a patsy. He doesn't even realize and understand nor comprehend the situation that he is in. Now keep in mind that this episode aired just 1 month prior to the Boston bombings. And of course, this episode talks specifically about the Boston Marathon.
Holy crap, this is awesome! I haven't felt a rush like this since I won that marathon.
I'm Bob Costas, here with Boston Marathon winner Peter Griffin. Peter, how did you do it?
So Peter goes on to say that he won the end of the race by killing the people that got in his way. There are so many eerie coincidences, like the wheelchair, for example, and the wheelchairs that we saw at the Boston bombings. And of course, the episode included scenes from a library, exactly like the Boston bombings at the library. So like I said, Peter is the patsy. He is the ignorant one and has no idea what he's doing. Thus the reason that they show him being the sacrificed one who is impaled and screwed up the ass. This episode revolves around the story of Mahmoud, which is the terrorist that befriends Peter. And Mahmoud is in reference to the Iranian president, Mahmoud. So the story revolves around Peter becoming a terrorist without knowing it, who's used as a patsy to blow up a bridge, which of course is in reference to blowing up the Rhode Island bridge, which later on, Peter unknowingly and unwillingly detonates the bomb by using his cell phone. Remember when I told you about the MK Ultra mind control, which of course was related to September 11th, and how they used a cell phone during the Dark Knight Rises attacks with James Holmes, which also had all of the connections to 911 or the 7/11. Now I want you to take a look at Peter's home. Notice the colors. It's the same colors you'll find at 7/11. Which brings me to the interview with Bob Costas talking about the Boston Marathon, and more specifically, the 117th Boston Marathon, which, like I said before, the 117 is reverse symbolism of 7/11. Now, this is exactly why they show you the symbolism and numerology of 7/11. Do you not see the 7/11, which is behind Peter on the clock tower, the Tower of Baal, the time that rings in the Slayer God of Death, the 7/11? So now you know why they show you the 7/11, the Boston bombing interview with the patsy, and then they show the clip where in the same episode he dials on his phone and sets off 2 bombs, 2 explosions, the Bi explosions.
I'm Bob Costas, here with Boston Marathon winner Peter Griffin. Peter, how did you do it?
Damn phone's busted. Maybe I dialed wrong.
Exactly like the 2 explosions at the Boston Marathon. Now, I want to also point out that during this episode, you'll notice that the police are using the terrorist or the patsy. Notice how they link him as an undercover agent. And by the way, did you notice the Illuminati checkered floor? And by the way, for those who don't see the unseen and can't see that Peter's chin is a pair of balls, well, that explains why his name is Peter, which means penis. And of course, there's deeper esoteric meaning in the very naming of the episode, the Turban Cowboy. Now, of course, a cowboy is actually a bull boy. And of course, the Boston Marathon had a cowboy. And then we have the turban. Of course, the Arabic or Islamic turban, if you understand the true etymology, is the turban of the Taurus bull. Thus, a turban comes from a bulb. And if you've watched my videos over time, you'll understand the whole etymological aspects of the Baal, Baal, El, Baal, the bulb, and of course the fertility of the sacred bulb. So this is why the etymology of turban tells you that it comes from a tulip, which actually comes from the bulb. And the bulb is the Baal, Baal. Now that's why they tell you that a turban is also known as a bull. Now keep that in mind with the theme of the Marathonian Taurus bull. Oh, and by the way, good luck trying to view the Family Guy's episode of the Turban Cowboy, because Fox pulled the show from YouTube to Hulu to everything so that you can't see the truth. And in case you didn't know, the Prophet Muhammad wore a turban with the colors of black and white. So if you were paying attention, you'll see that these terrorists who are the patsies, they have the backpacks on, you know, the black and the white terrorists that leave the scene with the backpacks still on. They never left them behind. But the undercover agents at the scene, the police officers who had backpacks on that day, when you see them leaving the scene later on, well, they had no backpacks on. Now, I want you to pay close attention to the attire of these undercover officers. What are they wearing? They're wearing the tan pants with the tan shoes, and then black jackets, and then with black backpacks as well. And some of them have, or most of them have, black hats. And of course, the skull on one of the caps of the agents gives them away. That's the logo of the skull for the Navy SEALs, special agents. So these undercover agents were dressed this way, and you'll notice that the FBI also dresses the exact same way. And don't forget that the FBI admittedly said that they were in contact with these two supposed terrorists. And notice that Tamerlan wears the same exact type of clothing. So ask yourself, why would these agents make sure that their agents had big fat backpacks on, walking around, along with all the other people who had backpacks on? Why would they do this? Why would they allow this? They allowed so many backpacks so that they could disguise and hide the true person who laid down the backpack. So take a look at this guy. I mean, he has a backpack, of course, that he's not wearing, which is very suspicious in itself. But the very coloration and design of this backpack is the one that they said that was used in the bombing. Notice how he's wearing the Illuminati colors of red and blue. And just like the attacks on September 11th, where they soon used that to take our rights away and invade our privacy, and they used it to herd the sheep. So once again, they are going to use this crisis, this event, as an excuse to take away our rights, for gun control, to searching and invading our privacy. So the rabbit hole of the Boston bombing goes much deeper than most will ever realize. So the Boston bombing is just another false flag operation, exactly like September 11th. Now remember on September 11th how The mysterious magical passport of the terrorists just happened to survive the blasts of 9/11, even though everything was torn to pieces when the explosion happened, but the passport happened to survive. It's the same story with the Boston bombings. They're saying these fragments prove the devices that were used on the attacks. Now, remember they said that the Boston bomb was so powerful that it blew limbs off of people. But let's take a look at the scene. I mean, look at the building. If a huge bomb went off here, do you see the building affected at all? No, just the glass blown out. And you will notice that there is no structural damage at all. And if limbs were blown off, sure is funny, I don't see a drop of blood anywhere. So take a look around and you'll notice that there is no blood anywhere when the bomb went off. And you'll notice the people that lost limbs and were being pushed in the wheelchairs, you'll notice that not only do they not look like they're in pain at all whatsoever, their faces are just normal. Their wounds are cut off. I mean, they're open, their legs are cut off. There'd be blood squirting everywhere. And at very least, blood would be dripping as they're being pushed along. And we don't see none of it. And it's the same story when they captured the terrorist in the boat. And you'll notice that there's no blood anywhere. Of course, later on, they show that there's blood on the step where he stepped down and some various other places, but in the beginning, there's no blood whatsoever. And it's also funny that they said they had a shootout with him. And then they said that he had a gun. And then they retracted it and said, well, he didn't have a gun. So the official story is that he did not have a gun. So then who did they have a shootout with? Now, I want you to pay attention to the Watertown police shooting in Boston. This is video taken of the actual shooting event or the shootout. And listen to the gunfire. You'll notice that the gunfire is coming from one type of guns, one distinct sound. You don't hear other types of guns shooting off in retaliation. So you hear the regular police guns and a shotgun, I believe, but you don't hear the gun coming back from the assailant. And I remind you that the establishment, if you will, admitted that they were indeed testing bombs that very same day at the very same location at the Boston Marathon.
Because we are getting reports now of another explosion in Boston, but this was from the people who are monitoring the police scanners report that this is a police-controlled explosion near Ground Zero.
Now, I also want you to check this out. The old Illuminati game of conspiracy, which actually shows a lot of truthiracies. Thus, I reported long ago about this on my September 11th series, but you can see without question that they're rewriting history. Terrorism, the Pentagon, the World Trade Center, disasters and killing for peace, you know, blah, blah, blah. So the recent clock tower set at 11:11 with the Boston bombings, along with the jogger card, does bring some interesting aspects to this whole game. Now, make sure to watch part 4 of the Boston ritual slaying of the Marathonian Bull, because I'm going to bring everything together and explain some deeper, esoteric, and etymological aspects of this whole event that most people are not aware of.